my content. So we're going to be checking out my boy, Feature Boy Kamikaze's Mortal Kombat, whichever was better, Midway or NetherRealm Studios. Before we get into this reaction video, I just want to give my thoughts and opinions on this. Why I think both eras were the best when it came to the 90s video games. And let's just say the 90s were a time of its life. So let's just say that before Midway went down the drain with the Mortal Kombat 4 and the mythology Sub-Zero and Special Forces, them god-awful terrible games, Mortal Kombat was at its earliest peak with Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, Ultimate 3, and Trilogy. But the home console, some had mixed reviews on it because they're not as near as perfect as the arcade version. Let me put it that way. Now, the arcade versions of the game were a bit better because of its music, sounds, and voice acting, and digitized martial arts actors. The home ports, however, especially in the first Mortal Kombat game, it was not that good. It looked colorful, it looked pretty. The gameplay, they replaced the blood with sweat. It was not the Mortal Kombat we all know and remember from the arcade. However, the Sega Genesis version, you have to put in the blood code ABACABB. That is the code to unlock the blood. And personally, one of my favorite characters from Mortal Kombat 1 is Scorpion. Spear, uppercut, just that easy. As far as Mortal Kombat 2 on the Super Nintendo Sega Genesis, the SNES is hands down the best because of the soundtrack, and it's mostly faithful towards the arcade. But I think the Mortal Kombat 2 on the Sega 32X was a bit better because of the sound. They pretty much added the voice that were missing from the Sega Genesis version. In Mortal Kombat 3 on the Super Nintendo, the music sounded pretty boring. That's how most of the I guess you could say most of the Super Nintendo games, when it came to the soundtracks, I think most of the music sounded pretty boring, especially Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. But I think the Mortal Kombat 1 on the Super Nintendo soundtrack, that was a good music though. But I think Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis, however, I think the sounds were a bit iffy. But yeah, I guess you could say it went through some ups and downs when it came to the visuals and the sound effects on the Mortal Kombat games in the early 90s. Up until Mortal Kombat Trilogy came out on the Saturn, PS1, and N64. But I prefer the PS1 version because I guess you could say I grew up with it, even though I never beaten the game. I almost did. I used to play the game with my sister back in the day. But the funny thing is, I think it was around back in 2011 when I revisited the Mortal Kombat Trilogy, playing it on the PS2. I sucked at the game. I'm not good at the combos and the running and everything. The only character that I was good as was Noob Saibot. Just running and kicking, that's it. I did not know how to use the special moves and combos at the same time. I'm not that combo person. However, with Mortal Kombat 4, Liu Kang was the only playable character that I like using. I guess you could say that's better. You know what? I pretty much beat the game like 10 times because it was just easy. Even though it was just the first 3D, 2D fighting game, whatever you want to call it. So, enough about my opinions. Let's check out the video.
Even give you more than ZZ Top. Well, full bears thou shall not more corner. Future like one more steps in y'all's corner.
Welcome, combatants. So we're going to choose which era of Mortal Kombat was better, Midway or the NRS. So do like, subscribe when it's more content, and hit the bell notification as well. So the Midway era, by far, people, I could say Midway era, in my opinion that is, I'm not saying about you guys, but to me, was definitely the more scarier Mortal Kombat world, if you think about it.
It is.
The music, the stages, just the way how it felt when you see these characters, when you go on to the choose your tower mode, you will obviously choose your destiny, you pick the tower, the pictures on the blocks would just look like some of the characters were dead in a way, like already. It just had a more scarier vibe to it, and I feel like even though when they first made the first 3 games, they had a story about certain characters, but it didn't have a very fleshed out full cinematic story like the NRS days have right.
Midway run, I can't even talk right. Now look, Midway for the most part was Mortal Kombat when it came to the games, and like you said, it was one of the scariest games any child can ever experience. It's like watching a horror picture. Sam Raimi making his first Mortal Kombat movie. I will bet you the effects would have been 10 times scarier than the video games are. Because Midway made the game scarier back in the 90s. Because 90s were a time where everything was just scary from top to bottom. NetherRealm Studios nowadays is sort of cheesy and scary at the same time when you put it like that.
Now, but the game still felt complete in a way. Do you get what I mean? What I mean by that is the game still felt like whatever game they made, you were getting all that you could out of it. And you really felt like the game was complete. Like you weren't going to go play the game and then feel like, I feel like this is really, I didn't get everything out of it. Like there could have been more put into this game, or there could have been a lot more done to it. The original Midway games really felt like they were the whole game. When they set out to make the game, it was there. When they made the characters, sure, some characters had just like copy moves in certain type of ways, but obviously they couldn't really do the best that they could back then, which they can do right now. But a lot of the characters, in my opinion, just felt so much more better back then. They felt like them characters. They felt right. They felt like they were the way how they should be. You really felt like the world of Mortal Kombat was just so much more bigger and so much more expansive back then. There was just so much of the world that you could look at, you could think about, and you could be like, I wonder what that world's like. I wonder what that realm's like. It's like every game wasn't just giving you the same stages or the same areas that you felt you had in the last game. There was more little bits added into it. Well, in the first 3 games, it was kind of a little bit different stages, and then they were all just put back in the game. But the other type of games, like Deception, Armageddon, the Deadly Alliance, those type of ones, you really felt like there was a lot of different type of games that were going into it. Yeah. And you really felt like the realms and the...
And can I be honest with you? I think Charlotte Monks and I think Deadly Alliance didn't really feel scary, in my honest opinion. But I think the game that did feel scary, however, was Mortal Kombat Trilogy because of its music. It was like low pitch, but the gameplay and the backgrounds of all previous games, they made it more scary than it is in the gameplay.
That were in it, you were always exploring somewhere different, like better and bigger. It just felt more expansive in a way, and it felt like the Mortal Kombat world that you imagine nowadays and you see and you're asking Ed Boon for, oh, why don't you bring in the Chaos Realm again, or where's the Order Realm? Now we only get references to these realms or stuff like that. But Midway days, they really put in everything they could. If they'd spent a whole year thinking about new places to put in, you can bet your bottom dollar that world would be in the game, and it was just assured that it was going to be there. And does anyone remember secret characters, stuff like that? I mean, you kind of have them type of secret tower things that they have in MK11 now with the button prompts, but having a secret character who's not even in the game pop out of nowhere and fight you if you win this or win that, it's so much more better when they used to do those type of things, when they had those things in the game. The last time they did that was MK9 because the original games did that. I miss those days of those secret things that you might not ever even fight that person. So cool. But then when we get to the newer timeline, the NetherRealm Studios, they're really great. But there's just things that they don't feel the same way. Everything feels like a movie now. And if you get what I mean, I don't...
You know, now that you think about it, it kind of does feel like a movie. But especially when it came to MK9, everything just feel like a reboot while you're watching the film. And to be honest with you, I'd rather watch the movie than play the games. So let me put it that way. MK11, however, it also felt like a movie. MKX did not feel like a movie.
Mind that it feels like a movie, don't get me wrong. but I do feel like there's certain vibes that you feel like a normal stage world. Like purple doesn't exist. It just feels a lot more like they got rid of those things to be more movie based for some reason, Warner Brother based, I'm gonna say, because it just doesn't feel the same way. The scary vibe that you got from stages or the music just isn't the same way. Everything seems too much like they're trying to make a movie out of the game. Though it's beautiful to have a story, because the stories, I like the story modes and I like the way how they play out. Certain directions could be changed a lot of times, but I do like that we have an actual fleshed out in the same way. Though I would love Conquest. I mean, even marketing now is a lot different. You know that when you saw stuff like trailers back in the day for Midway, you were getting what you got. What you saw, you were getting. Now, we don't get that. Look how they show Scorpion in this trailer when he's in his Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 outfit. We didn't even get that suit. Like, what the heck is going on there? Like, there's a lot of false advertising, there's a lot of cutbacks and a lot of problems with the games and stuff like that. And it just feels like they focus so much on the cinematic aspect of it that they forget about the hardcore core gaming section of the game. And that's the one thing that I don't like about NRS timelines and the games that they do nowadays. I love Mortal Kombat, don't get me wrong, I love it so much, but I just don't like those type of things. I wish they could bring it back to the whole way that the other games used to feel, the vibe that they used to feel and the scariness that we'd feel in it. But do let me know, people, what do you guys think? Do you guys wish that they brought back that type of vibe, the scary vibe, the brutalities that were actually breaking someone up really badly? Do you wish that we could have those same vibes of feeling like the game was more complete instead of it feeling like we got to wait for DLC to feel complete? Or are you fine with NetherRealm Studios timeline and how they are with their games and everything like that? But do like, subscribe if you want to see more content from people. This is your boy Future.
I mean, like you said before, I just think that NetherRealm, it does feel like a movie theater when it comes to the storylines and how good the story is. I mean, like I said, I like the story mode, but I don't like how it was executed sometimes. If it's not focused on one character, then it'll randomly just be a B plot. And I hope when they do possibly remaster all classic Mortal Kombat games, whether it's going to give us a scary vibe or just a normal vibe you get from the NetherRealm Studio games. Either way, I just hope that they can somehow give us those classic Mortal Kombat days when games used to be a lot scarier and intimidating at the same time. So, shout out to Feature Boy Kamikaze for making this video once again. I'm glad I did this reaction and you heard my piece. I would like to hear y'all's in the comments below. I'm out of here.